I'd like to get your quick reaction to this, casino gambling.
Well, I see nothing wrong with it. It's a very respectable form of gambling. I don't think, well, let me put it this way. I don't think that gambling is a very productive thing. It merely switches money around. It doesn't make anything. And therefore, I can't say that I think that gambling is a very productive activity. But people like to gamble. And there's an enormous amount of gambling in Jamaica anyway, in betting shops and on the race courses and so on. I cannot see why casinos have been picked out by the churches as being particularly evil. I think it's a form of inverted snobbery. You see, the churches don't mind squalid betting shops with rather squalid people in it. But well-dressed, wealthy foreigners in a casino, they object to.
Tourism.
Well, tourism is an absolute essential for Jamaica. It's not a question that we can have any opinion about. Many, many years ago, actually, I remember this very well, when John Pringle was first made director of tourism, I was writing against tourism because I said that I didn't think that an influx of wealthy foreigners into the country would be very good for a country that was essentially somewhat primitive. And John said to me that I wasn't very silly and I was to support him, and I did. And then I came to understand that if it were not for tourism in Jamaica, we'd be flat broke. It is our biggest foreign currency earning. What else can we do? This is the beauty of the country is a tourist country. We should develop tourism now. Look, we have about 1 million Stowe visitors a year. Cayman, with a population of 20,000 people, has nearly as much as we have. If we had the same proportion of population as Cayman has, we'd have perhaps 5 million tourists a year.
Ganja.
Well, that's another thing. For 150 years, Jamaicans smoked their little ganja. It was purely a social thing. Nobody ever escalated to hard drugs. Indeed, my father on the Oxford Road we had an Indian gardener, and he allowed the Indian gardener to plant a little ganja for himself, and never did anybody any harm, and it certainly never harmed the gardener. And in about 1960, I kept on writing and broadcasting that I thought that ganja should be legalized. Because if you don't legalize something, it gets out of hand. And when the Americans started to slap the prohibition on ganja, I realized that all it would do would be to create a gangsterism, just as the Volstead Act, when they brought in prohibition in America, did. Gin and whiskey never harmed anybody in America until they brought in prohibition. And then that bred the mafia.
Higglers.
Oh, well, Higglers, I always got into trouble with them. I made a little fun of Higglers in my column, and they started a riot out of the Gleaner. Terrified me.
Get you fired. The United States.
Well, it's the most powerful country in the world, of course. It has the most powerful economy. And Americans, on the whole, are very well-meaning and decent people. But I think they don't really understand diplomacy. And I think they're trying to push smaller countries around a bit too much. And they're certainly wrong in the way they're trying to tackle their drugs. It hasn't succeeded. I mean, they're spending fortunes every year on drug prohibition and ganja prohibition. And America itself is the greatest production of ganja in the world. More ganja is produced in America than any other country in the world. And I can't help feeling that in trying to block off Jamaica ganja, they're trying to protect their own monopoly.
Homosexuality.
How much?
Homosexuality.
Oh, well,
homosexuals.
It's not my taste. I've always been strictly heterosexual, but I like girls, but maybe it's a bad thing to do, but I don't see that people should be prevented from making their own choice. I think the current violent prejudice against homosexuality about homosexuals is bad, wrong. I think that many of the most productive people have been homosexuals. William Shakespeare was a homosexual, for goodness sake.
Russia.
Well, Russia has never been entirely a civilized country, you know. The European part of Russia was fairly civilized, but not really very much. And, of course, when communism came along, it became a terrible country. And it was trying to browbeat everybody into becoming communist. But, as inevitably had to happen, their regime collapsed.
Omar Davies.
I think he's a very nice man. I don't know him. I've never met him. But I think he's a splendid man. I admire him. He has a terrible job, being Minister of Finance in Jamaica, and I sympathize deeply with him. But I think he's doing his best. And I like what he's done. And he's one of the few politicians that I say nice things about.
Edward Seaga.
Well, now, I've known Eddie for a long time. He's a brilliant man. He's probably the most brilliant, the cleverest prime minister or minister that we've ever had. But unfortunately, in the last few years, he became very arrogant and he behaved very stupidly within the Jamaica Labour Party. And insofar as the last election was concerned, the Jamaica Labour Party and Eddie Seaga were their own worst enemies. They destroyed themselves. Which I think is very unfortunate, because if Jamaica is to continue to be a democratic country, which I hope it will, we do have to have at least two strong parties to contend. And if the Jamaica Labour Party and Eddie Seaga don't pull themselves together, it may well be that the third term of the PNP will become a fourth term or become a one-party state. And I don't want to see that at all.
Prime Minister P.J. Patterson?
I never met him. Well, not really. I think he's a very well-mannered man. He has charming manners, and he's very moderate in his approach. He's a nice-looking man, and he has a good figure. But I can't say that I think he makes a very good prime minister.
Your best critics call you sometimes racist.
Why should there be? My second wife is black. My adopted daughter is black. I've lived in this country for my family here 300 years. Why should there be a racial... I despise racialism. But you see, the trouble is that a lot of people with chips on their shoulders, if you say anything, they turn it into racial. I mean, if I said that I saw a black lady walking with an ugly hat, it was the hat I was criticizing, not the lady, and they would say, I was being racialist because I didn't like the lady because she was black. So stupid people. They don't... how could I be a racialist?
In 1995, and it's published in the second book that has just come out with your writings, you wrote about the future of Jamaica. You said, the important thing is the nature of it, and at the present time, the future of Jamaica looks rather dim.
Yes, I think that's true. It's very dim indeed. We're broke. We're in a terrible condition financially. And I hope that the present government will awake from their long sleep and do something about it.
But you wouldn't live anywhere else, would you?
Not if I could help it, no. I think that once you're a Jamaican, wherever you go, I was always homesick. I was 10 years, well, first of all, I was at school in England, and then during and after the war, I was 10 years in England. But I was homesick. Homesickness drove me back. Then when I went over to America in the 70s, I was also homesick there, so I came back.
Well, in Jamaica Farewell, did you remember what you said in Jamaica Farewell about coming home?
Well, what did I say?
For good or ill, Jamaica is my homeland and has been home of my family for 3 centuries. As I am an older man, I have no doubt that a departure from this earth is not very far away. But this time it will not be exile to a foreign country unless the Alpian fields can be so described. I would
The
be
Elysian fields.
Elysian, I'm sorry, can be so described. I would be quite content if such a destination turned out to be at least as pleasant as Englewood.
Yes. I was very fond. I had a very happy time in Englewood. But you see, I wrote that book when I was in America. All of us who felt that we'd better migrate were all, I mean, it's very difficult. I think once you're a Jamaican, you never really want to live anywhere else.
That's true.
And I certainly never wanted to in a way, but when things are very bad, sometimes you have to. My next move will probably be upwards. Well, I probably not downwards. I don't really mind whether I go to heaven or hell. I have an enormous number of friends in both places. You can't talk about much future, you know, when you're 84. I'm going to have a lot of fun, I hope, until I have to depart. And then I just depart. That's the end of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for putting up with me.
And peanuts.
And peanuts.